What up, what up? Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name's Nick Engvall. I've got two gentlemen with me to talk some kicks on this episode. A familiar face in Mike Guillory, but a familiar face for those in the Discord in Dalton Miller. What's good, guys? How you guys doing?
What's going on, man? Doing all right. Excited to do this for the first time. It seems pretty fun.
And I'm doing great. I am just happy to be here. Another day recording. It's nice to have Dalton here for the first time. So good to see you, brother.
You too, man. We don't get to talk very often, so this is real cool.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun. I've been wanting to have some more folks from the Discord community on, more regularly. I mean, if you're in the Discord, you see everybody every couple of weeks, with trivia nights or, just random Zoom calls and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be fun to try to get more folks on. Greg specifically, I've been saying you need to come on for a while, so.
Yeah, I suggested him, but he and several others suggested me first, so that's why I'm here.
So before we get into this episode, I guess, Mike, I'm going to toss it to you because we do have a new review to read.
All right, cool. Let me pull it back up now. Come on, phone. All right, so we have one from Your New Secret. It says, Talking Sneakers for All Sneakerheads. I'm assuming it kind of, the title's long, so it gets cut off. But we got a good old 5 stars, and it says, Get these 4 dudes on the mics together and magic happens. It's a show about sneakers, the industry, and people who care about both. Take the hype and pretense out and leave it at the door. Shoes are functional expressions of art, and these gentlemen appreciate all types. But beyond the show lies the gem of the operation, the Sneaker History Discord. An actual community of people that care less about kicks on feet, but people behind them. From food to football kits and Formula One to favorite healthy debate. You name it, and Sneaker History Discord's got it. A golden place that hasn't been ruined by exploding and extravagantly influenced industry that is shoes. They go on your feet, people. It's not that serious. 10 out of 5 stars. Frauding starting 5 candy bars needs to happen, guys. Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Your New Secret. We'll take that 10 stars and allocate them several places.
Yeah, thanks for the review. By the way, we opened up the Discord to a small number of people for free. It'll be in the link in the description, the first link in the description for this episode. Once those are gone, we're going to kind of slow it down and make sure it doesn't get too crazy in there. But I would just hit that link and join. It's a great bunch of people, and honestly, like my favorite place on the internet. So
it's fantastic, people.
It definitely is.
Get on there.
That said, this episode, we're going to talk about collaborations because on one hand, there's way too many of them, but also, can we ever have too many? Can we ever get enough? But before that, we're going to do a little bit of rocking and copping. So I'm going to let Dalton start us off since he's the first timer here. What are we rocking and copping in this week, gentlemen?
Rocking. I've been wearing a lot of Vans lately. It's the Liberators Authentics. It's also what I've been copping. It's kind of the only new shoe I bought lately.
Nice.
That thing's real sweet. It was an Asian only release. They're awesome. So that's about it. As far as upcoming releases, I have no idea what's even coming out.
How about you, Mike?
Oh, man. So I've been rocking these Barcelona Dunks for a while now, since I got them for, I guess, about 2 weeks now. Super clean, super underrated because I guess they never released here, but I got them super cheap, so I really like them. And copping, I got a pair of the undefeated 5 on it Dunks on the way. I got them, again, super cheap. So, yeah, that's what I got right now.
Which color? That's the
purple and blue ones.
Blue and purple, right?
Yeah. I feel like those were...
Yeah, sweet. I love those things.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
What you rocking, Nick?
So I've been rocking this same shoe that I posted or showed on the last episode, but the Puma R698 is like an all 3M version. I just posted it on my Instagram stories, so depending on when you take this in, you might be able to see it up there. But I just think that 3M is like the most. 3M is like the burrito equivalent to me, right? Like, just put 3M on anything, and like it instantly becomes cool. I have no self-control. I just think it's like the coolest thing ever. And even better is if it's black 3M. But
all right, given that, what did you think of the 5 Lab 3s?
So I think that the quality on those was totally hot garbage, but I thought the concept of all of those lab shoes was really great. Like execution, and I think like the quality. I think honestly, I think the quality. It's hard with 3M because they're going to crease so bad, right?
Yeah.
The 3s specifically are just going to look terrible. Even this shoe is a little rough, if you looked real close at it, right? But I think that if it's done right, you could have the 5 Lab 3s could have been like full on, like you could have just addressed the toe box somehow, and it could have been an incredible shoe. But I think the good thing that came from the 5 Lab 3s or all the lab shoes is that like basically after that, Nike tried to revamp all the Jordan retros, right? Because those were so
these are so bad. Let's fix everything.
But the shapes were just way off.
I do remember the 3 Lab 5s being really good quality. They had a really nice leather liner. The shape was really weird, but the actual material quality I thought was good.
Yeah, I remember those.
What was your favorite lab shoe?
So they did the 3 Lab 5, 5.3. They did the all patent 4s too. I don't know if they did any others.
I think that was it, because I think they were at that point. They're like, we can't sell these.
Probably that. Yeah, they did 2 of the 4s. They did an all red 4 and an all black patent 4. I think my favorite overall was that initial 5, with the white elephant print and the teal accents on it.
Yeah. I think I think that's probably the best execution, but the shape of that shoe was really bizarre to me. Like there was I don't remember exactly, but I remember looking at it thinking like the tongue is not sitting in the right position and the ankle collar is not in the right position, which basically is like that's the Jordan 5 is defined by that, right? Like the rest of it's like it's a cool shoe. Don't get me wrong. Robbie's like listening to this rolling in his grave, but rolling in his beachy Hawaiian towel.
What did you do to Robbie?
He spilled his drink. He's
But but that's what I rocked. As far as copping, I actually have been trying to find some of the total orange Air Max 90s that came out a few months back, a year back or whatever. I just slept on them. So that's kind of been the thing that I've been digging for. And I haven't really looked at like upcoming releases. I mean, those orange, I think they're Los Angeles themed Air Max BWs.
Yep.
Obviously like a perfect shoe for me. So if I can get those or the the Persian Violet BWs, I'd be super stoked. But as
I kind of do want the Persian Violets. I've never had BWs before.
Yeah, it's a great shoe. As I posted in the Discord today, I just don't think I'm getting anything off of the sneakers app. So we'll see.
Me either, man.
I know the struggle.
How did I completely forget that? I hit on the Off-White Dunks today.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, there's more of them?
Yeah, I got exclusive access, and I hit on those today, so that's really cool.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, they did today, and they're doing more early access tomorrow, so that would be September 8th, the day we're recording, and September 9th tomorrow.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Good stuff.
So that's pretty cool. I've never bought an Off-White shoe before.
First time.
Yeah, Mike, are you still anti sneakers app?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. For the sake of like the podcast, I know what the heck's going on. I've downloaded the sneakers app again, so I can kind of see what's going. What's happening to these little stories and crap. But I mean, it's just honestly, there's not been anything there that has really piqued my interest. The last thing I tried to get was that Alele May 14, which I really liked. I mean, we knew what was going to happen, but I tried anyway, and that's about it.
Yeah,
I feel like 14s you might have a better chance on other things then.
Man, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. It's so hard to know, man. It's just like it's just frustrating because it's so hard to know. It's like I would think that I've bought enough Air Maxes or like Jordan 3s on my account throughout the years, but then when I look back and see the stuff that I've actually gotten off the sneakers app, I've had my sneakers or my Nike account for I don't even know how long, but Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's get into this conversation about collaborations, because I know Dalton's got some interesting takes, because he's got an eclectic appreciation for sneakers, I would say.
That's one way to put it.
Not the normal. I mean, it's tough, because I think you could say that collaborations are, there's too many collaborations, but at the same time,
there definitely are.
But that's how we get to a Liberators fans, right? Like, these new upcoming streetwear brands, or not even streetwear at this point. There's so many like little nuanced, cool people doing cool things that get a collaboration with a footwear brand. And that, to me, it's how some of those people become successful enough to stick around. There's so many brands that just disappear because they never get that collaboration. They never get that stamp of approval from a big brand. So what do you think is like the basis for a good collaboration?
I think storytelling has to be in there in some capacity. Yeah. Like some things that are sticking out in my mind of like what a really, really fantastic collab is the Premier Life on Mars Sauconys. Mm-hmm. I thought those were executed fantastically, up to down, like packaging, little extras. They had like a little Mars passport. The colorways were also fantastic. Mm-hmm. So I think colorway is definitely a big part of it too. Like the shoe still has to look good, but it's what you're doing with storytelling, with the materials, with the color blocking, with the marketing. All of that definitely goes into it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Mike?
I agree with Dalton. I love the storytelling aspect, but I have to take a step back, because sometimes maybe just a nice color that we don't typically see. If it's something I can't go out and it's replicated in a takedown model later, or just a different shoe later, I'm about that. Give me kind of that one-off, but give me good materials. That is something that I'm really big on collaborations. If you're going to give me this premium charge, you're making less of them, charging me more, I want it to be good materials. And my best example of that is the Burn Rubber New Balance. I'm looking at it right now. The MT580 blue collar and white. They have the blue collar and white collar pack. Those were fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I love that shoe. I got it in 2011 from Nice Kicks, just sitting around. And that's kind of one of those, like the pinnacle of collaborations. The bar is set there for me, because it's a shoe you don't really see often. You don't see the MT 580 that often. And then the suede, the materials, the extra laces, the dust bag, everything together makes it what it is, as opposed to just, here, we put someone's name on it. Here it is. Blah.
I agree, though.
MT580s are dope.
I think the MT580, that colorway was great. The story was great. I think for me, it has to be relevant to the collaborator, right? Like it has to be the smaller side of the collaboration, whatever that is, right? Has to be relevant to their background, their storyline, And when you get into these stories where you have multiple brands coming together, you still have to have something that represents, the smaller brands, right? Like I would use like the Adidas ZX8000s as an example, and say like Neighborhood and Undefeated, like they're known for having kind of this like heavily branded black or white, very tonal, and to have those brands come together on Adidas shoe, as much as it might be cool for me as like an EQT fan to see them do some spin on the EQT, it's totally off brand for them. So they to have a black shoe or all white shoe or whatever that is, that aligns with both those brands. You're going to get the heavy branding from Neighborhood, the heavy branding from Undefeated, and like, Adidas is kind of the benefactor of those two brands collaborating, right? And it's like they just provide the platform and the reach to make the product. And I think that's the when I think of like successful collaborations, that's what I always look for. And I think that a lot of the smaller boutiques get opportunities to do things, and then they try to do something that they have had a story for a long time, but they but it might not be relevant to the brand of the boutique, where it might be relevant to, the individual behind the brand or the owner of the store or something, or it might be a great idea. Right. But it doesn't make sense for, if I think of like the extra butter, Reebok ventilators that I posted, or that I showed in the last episode, based on the Halal Guys food carts. Now, no other brand could really get away with that, right? Because you can't do that as an Undefeated collab. Like if somebody works at Undefeated or Union or someplace that's not in New York, at least at that time, Halal Guys hasn't expanded. There's still just a handful of spots in New York that you can get it. And I think that was like a home run, where that's also to the flips, on the flip side of that, that's where a lot of these collaborations, kind of fall short for me, as you see how forced it is, where it's like, okay, if you're not self-aware as a boutique, then you're not helping yourself or the footwear brand by collaborating. Yeah. Right. And that's a tough conversation to have with people. And I'm sure that people see a lot of, if you're working at a brand on collaborations, you probably see all sorts of people's ideas and hear about all sorts of people's ideas that ultimately don't actually ever hit the market. But I do think that as much as like collaborations are everywhere and everybody's doing it, and yes, there's some that are just like stupidly forced and over the top dumb, and
Sakai fragment.
Yeah. I do think that like the idea of a collaboration will never be a bad thing. Yeah. I know that's probably a hot take for the sneaker world, because, we see thousands of them a year, but to look at it from like somebody who's worked in a big corporation, I know how hard it is for actual ideas to be surfaced to the top. And unfortunately, in a lot of big businesses, and the footwear world is no different, you could have 100 people screaming, up the ranks to say, this is going to be the coolest thing we've ever done as a company. But all it takes is one person from a boutique that has some high energy, or, a brand that has some good buzz, for an executive or someone in the higher up ranks of a big business to say, oh, these are the cool people we want to work with. And unfortunately, like that always ends up, being a tough situation to navigate probably on both sides, because you get to work with somebody maybe that you admire or appreciate, and then you're doing something, for work. So, but I do think that there'll always be room for it. And, I guess like I would point to like somebody like Ronnie Feig or Undefeated. Bodega's done really well, kind of carving out their lanes in terms of like who they're able to collaborate with that makes sense and what they're able to do. Because some brands, you can push it a little bit further, others, you can't, right? Like the Kith Wilson stuff for the tennis that just came out. Like it was super safe, it was not pushing the envelope in any way whatsoever. But also, it's tennis. That's what most tennis fans are going to want. That's what most Wilson brand fans are going to want. Tennis players probably don't have too many crazy things. If, you've got to play in a very confined, set of rules and regulations for that whole sport. So.
I wish they would stop that, by the way, because being a tennis player and just having to stick with that same crap, they need to take more chances, because the biggest thing that ever happened was Fed playing in the Jordan 3 Vapors, which they need to have more things like that. I mean, you had Nick Kyrgios.
That shoe's so cool.
I want that shoe still so bad. But you had Nick Kyrgios in the Kyrie collaboration, but he wasn't a big enough player to really influence a bigger change. So you had Serena in the Jordan 1 type shoe. But again, I know I don't want to get side tangent, but if they really kept going with things like that, I think you can see more of that market, because there's so many things now. Like Nike SB does a lot of collaborations with Nike Tennis or Nike Court, and people don't realize that there's a lot of things that intermingle in those two groups and have really dope clothing. But because of the uppityness of tennis, you don't get to see all those things. So that's why they try to transition to skateboarding sometimes.
Yeah, I think with what Nick was saying with the the collaborator, to go back on that, the collaborator putting their own identity on it. I think one of the best examples of that is something I've got right here, which is the Blends Vans Skate High, nice. Which it's such a simple thing, but it is so very Blends because their motif is a lot of black, a lot of monotone, and since they're edgy, they just put a bone in place of the jazz stripe and called it a day. And this is just a fantastic collab because it really does it really highlights what Blends does best.
Yep.
And they've had a long Vans and Blends have had a long history. They usually do 1 to 2 collabs a year, and they're usually all fantastic, and they usually sell out very quickly because Vans fans are diehard about the Blend stuff, and they don't make many of them either, of course.
Well, and I think that's like a great example too, because it's nothing too crazy, and it's a lane where like nobody else is really at, right? I mean, there's other brands that do collabs with Vans that are, maybe on the monotone side, or maybe on a a simple approach. But I also think that's even more successful because Blends doesn't do a ton of stuff with other brands, right? Like a Blends Air Max 1 would be totally weird, and I would just be like, that doesn't make sense.
They don't even have a Nike contract.
Yeah. Now, yeah. I mean, they did for a while, but yeah, a few years back they lost it.
Yeah.
But any of the brands that they would carry, it just wouldn't make sense for them to collaborate with to that extent, right?
Yeah.
No. It's like the perfect, hey, we found our lane, let's not step out of it and, mess things up kind of.
They could do like Doc Martens. And that's the another brand I could see them definitely working with, but like a Blends New Balance, like that, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things I was thinking about as we kind of talked about this topic, do you think that, like, kind of going away from the collaborator conversation, but we'll probably come back to that, but do you think that the packaging has to be changed for collaborations? Or like maybe the extra stuff, the accoutrements, if you will. Like, do you have to have all that stuff for a collaboration?
I'd like it to, but it doesn't need it.
Yeah.
I know Concepts, they always go really hard with the special boxes and special packaging, and it's really fantastic to see, but I don't think it's completely necessary, especially because a lot of the times they just limit that stuff to really small in-store only releases, which I think is really cool because it makes the people that were there in person even more special to get, like, they get the special box. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Mike?
Yeah, I guess it's just, I'm in the same boat as you, Dalton. It's cool if I get it. If not, it's all right as well. But I do like the little extras. Maybe not the boxes so much, but I like the little, maybe extra little lace duvet, or like I say, dust bag or laces, whatever it may be, just to give it that feel, okay, this was something special, this is something different. It's not just an inline release, or it's not something that's going to come out again, next year. So the little extras just give it like a little bit more of a better feel to it sometimes.
I'm a sucker for a good dust bag.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That can be a game changer.
Did you guys know that, I think until, Nick, you might know better than I, until 2007 or 8, New Balance didn't allow co-branding on their shoes?
Yeah.
If you were collaborating with New Balance, if you wanted co-branding, you would have to have it on a removable part of the shoe, so either the laces or the insole. So whenever Soulbox was doing their collaborations with New Balance in 2006-7, they had to unlace all of the manufactured shoes and relace them with their own branded laces.
Yeah, that's how a lot of the early collaborations worked, unfortunately, or fortunately, right? Like, it was really like a stepping stone of getting the brands to be comfortable with collaborations at that point too. I have, I don't know what the very first New Balance collaboration was, but I have the first Concepts New Balance collaboration from 2007, I think.
Okay.
It's a 576. It's like a white with yellow and baby blue and like lime green accents. And
that sounds awesome.
yeah, it's just a completely weird shoe. And if you know, back then New Balance would never do crazy colors like that. Never at all. I'll grab those and take a look, but I don't know if they actually have Concepts branding on them. There's for sure interesting like branding on it, like the Made in the USA is like scripted type of stuff. But it's funny to think about that too, because, you know, now 15 years later, you know, every brand is like, just throw Kith next to it. It's like Pizza Hut and Kith, or, you know, Pizza Hut and Undefeated. And it's like, hey, if it gets kids back into the reading club, you know, the book club, the Pizza Hut book club or whatever that was, then I'm all for it. But I feel like that's like the problem, in my opinion, at least, is not that we have too many collaborations, but we allow too many forced collaborations to happen, you know, because even if it's a big brand, right? You know, and I would take like Vans off the table, right? Vans is one of those companies that they're so about the artists that they've had, you know, hundreds of people that would never have gotten the opportunity to create anything with a major footwear brand, just because they care about art and music and, you know, that kind of culture that exists around it.
They were given Iron Maiden their own colorways in the 1990s.
Right, exactly. And like, that's huge, right? On the other side of, you know, the playing field when it comes to sneakers, a brand like Nike is, you know, not to pick on them, but they're out here like, you know, suing people that they should have collaborated with in a lot of ways, right? Or artists that will eventually be people they work with, you know, like that's how it works. Unfortunately, is like they have to like people have to fight to get to that level. And at some point along the way, a lot of those people that are, you know, you can't really break it down to followers, but if you could, it's like, oh, the person that has 50 or 100,000 followers right now might get a little bit of attention from Nike, but if they're selling a, you know, a remade or a knockoff Nike product, then Nike's going to try to sue them. Yep. If they do it in a cool enough way and they hit 500,000 followers or 1 million followers, they might just get a Nike contract. And there's, you know, they'll just throw out the lawsuit 3 years later. Like that totally, I mean, I don't have any proof of that happening, but I would bet that happened at some point along the way.
Probably.
Yeah. Most likely.
Yeah, I think as far as like forced or bad collabs, I kind of made fun of it before, but like, what do you guys think of this new round of the Sakai waffles? Because they have some with Fragment, they have some with Clot, and someone else. But it's the 5 new Sakai waffles.
Undercover, yeah.
And Undercover, yes, thank you. What do you guys think of those? Do you think that's an example of a really forced collab, or do you think they actually care?
I think it's forced. I think I feel like it always starts with the whole Travis Scott thing. They did the triple collaboration with Travis Scott, so I think they're going to just run that sucker dry until people don't want to do it anymore. So first it was of course the ones. Now we got the Sakai times Undercover times Nike. So they're going to keep doing it until no one wants it anymore. So that's going to be their cash cow, because, hey, no one else is doing triple collaborations, which Adidas actually did with, Nick mentioned the shoe earlier, the ZX8000 with Undefeated and, oh my God, I lost my train of thought, but they did multiple people on one shoe.
Adidas and Undefeated have a really good history, I think. Most of their history, I think, is really, really strong. I think kind of the peak of that was in 2013 with the Babes ZX5000 that they did with Undefeated. And those are just incredible. That shoe's just a home run.
Yeah.
So that's the type of stuff where a triple collab really, really works. And you can see all three parties represent it really highly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they're all shooting for again. But maybe they just ran out of ideas. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think that there's always going to be some sense of laziness with a lot of that stuff. At least from a consumer side, we see it as lazy. But for a lot of brands, the colors might be very much their brand, right? You know, maybe not with all those Sakai's, but you know, I can kind of see how you could potentially take a Travis Scott Jordan 1 or Air Max 1 or whatever, and then say, here's a fragment colorway. Here's, you know, undefeated colorway. Here's a XYZ colorway. Because, you know, like Soulfly Jordan 1s, right? There's not enough of those shoes to go around, but you could get a lot of buzz by just applying that same color to a Travis Scott version.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between, you know, Nike collaborations and other brands that are out there collaborating, because it's more transactional on the Nike side. It's not, let's, you know, and sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. You know, for the first, you know, round of Off-White, the 10, right? Virgil Abloh being able to cut up shoes to the extent that he did absolutely changed the game. We wouldn't have had Union Jordan 1s if Virgil didn't do the 10 first. Yeah. We wouldn't have had any of the Sakai stuff if Virgil didn't do that stuff first. And sometimes it just takes the right person having the you know, either the balls to stand in there and say, I'm not doing this unless I get to do it my way, which, you know, if you've looked at any of the stuff with like Fear of God and Jerry Lorenzo, you know, he was the only person to get his own silhouette, you know, other than Kanye, right? Like nobody gets their own silhouette at Nike, but he was like, I'm not going to be a partner if I'm not going to. And then he's still got to reel it back in and do, you know, air raid inspired colorways, you know, like they play the game, right? It's a give and take. But I think the interesting part about that is we don't see enough of the 10. You know, like I'm not a fan of many of those shoes. I would love to have the 97s and maybe the Prestos, but generally, like, it's not my style. I don't need any of the Off-White stuff. But for
that's
what
correct, if you can buy his off of him.
Yeah, for what he has done for sneakers and changed the way that you know, Nike works with partners, and for just like all the crazy stuff he's been able to do, I still think it's badass that he's been able to do all this stuff with a brand like Nike. You know, and I was thinking about, like, when you start thinking about the like 3, 4, you know, the triple collabs or whatever, Adidas has done a really good job with, you know, bringing multiple brands together throughout the years. You know, like Consortium has done various projects where it's like, hey, these are two shops that are going to work together on a particular silhouette. But I actually think that the first stuff that I can think of was the New Balance. Mike, you brought up the 580, the Meta, Stussy, Mad Hectic, Undefeated stuff, the bright ass colors on all those 580s in like 2007 or 2008. It was insane.
Ever do.
Yeah.
Never. And not even taking into account that like those were mostly sold in Japan and barely made it out of Japan back then. You still wouldn't see New Balance making those crazy colors, which is, that to me, that's like the huge win. I don't think that everybody should make crazy colors of everything. I mean, I think every person should own a few crazy colors of shoes, but like, I don't think everything
brand should be crazy colors, but look at me.
Yeah. But I think it's really interesting because now we're at this point where we're back like to having too many people playing in the sandbox, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not really that there's too many people in the sandbox. It's just that the people in the sandbox are still working on the same castle. Like, we already seen that castle, man. Blow that thing away, put some new water in, and make your own castle. That's what I want to see from collaborations.
Yeah.
I think Nike does a really good... It's interesting because Nike goes from collaborator to collaborator, and they work with them for a couple years, and then they find a new one. Mm-hmm. And you can see it. Like, they were working with Hood by Air for a little bit, then PSNY, then Acronym, then they had APC for a bit. And it's just all these guys, and after they were done, and now they're on to Off-White, and Fragment's always been there. Yeah. Fragment's always going to be there. Well, I guess Sakai is one of the new ones that they're working with.
Travis Scott.
And I think that's a really good thing because they have given a lot of people a lot of opportunities to make a lot of really interesting stuff over the years. Yeah. And it's nice to know that if they keep this up, they'll be the first to bring out the next new guy who will eventually go to work with Adidas after them.
Yeah. Because it kind of sucks when you look at that, just kind of the history, like Virgil excluded, is that Nike will get that new person, use them, and then once they figure out, oh, this is what this person's taste is, this is what's selling, they take that idea and then generalize it and then let that person go. Because how many things have we seen have that kind of that fear of God touch now, but now Jerry's gone? Or I think the biggest thing is, I don't know, like with Acronym and Errolson, I cannot remember his last name, but he did a lot of ACG work. They kind of just drained him dry. Thank you. They drained him dry of his idea, got ACG back into the limelight, and I feel like now you don't really see that many Acronym collaborations anymore. So unless you're Virgil or Travis, I feel like you gotta.
I would love to see another round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just tough out there, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like it's a lot of Virgil and Travis right now.
I think the thing with someone like Errolson from Acronym, or anybody that's found success outside of these collaborations, it's tough to want to build a long-term relationship with a brand that is gonna, sounds bad, but like throw you out for the new hot thing, right? Yeah. Because it's coming. Yeah. It's never going to be a long-term partnership. Unfortunately or fortunately, Nike set the precedent with Kanye to be like, hey, this guy's, doing great for, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. And now he's gone. And, Nike doesn't need collaborators by any means, but if they don't have all these collaborations and these partners and these, endorsees, eventually they do fall off, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that there's a lot of good stuff coming. I think that there's I guess like there's a loosening of the reins in a sense at Nike, where you're seeing the backwards swoosh and, the added things and, the distress this and the extended soles and the double swooshes and all the crazy stuff that we see on collabs now. I mean, just think like, I would imagine when Dave Ortiz got to do the Bacons, 12 years ago or 14 years ago, whatever it was, none of that stuff was an opportunity. It was like, here are the colors that you can use, or don't change anything but the colors on this shoe. Cool. And that was a collaboration, which is not really a collaboration, but like, thankfully we got past all that stuff and we're getting to a point where people are getting to do some crazy stuff. I think too, like there's a couple other things that I want to talk about in regards to collabs. I think people that are just, I say this in a loving way, weird, they are the best people to collaborate. Mm-hmm. The best thing to happen to sneakers is not necessarily Virgil, it's Jeremy Scott, because Jeremy Scott absolutely threw everything we were supposed to think about sneakers out the window and said, let's just fuck all this shit up and see what happens. And some of it turned out cool. Some of it's ridiculous, of course, but like, until somebody goes in there it's almost like chaotic, you don't get the freedoms for the other people that are, the 7 and 8s on a scale of 1 to 10 in chaos and craziness, right? And we don't necessarily all love the super 10 plus crazy people, but like occasionally they hit home runs. So if you don't have those people shaking things up throughout the years and just completely like annihilating our status quos within these big footwear brands, then you don't get the, as reluctant as I am, like Kanye is that as well, right? Like Kanye, forcing his hand in so many ways, love him or hate him, he's pushing the envelope for a lot of these people. Mm-hmm. But I say that to kind of set up the next part of what I wanted to talk about, is how all of these collaborations happen through connections and the same, it seems like the same groups of people, right? You could look at, on the Adidas side, Pharrell and Nigo and, that relationship. Like Nigo got into this stuff because of Hiroshi Fujiwara of Fragment. And like, all the brands that kind of, Street Thing and all the other Japanese brands that have come up, Human Made and Undercover, like a lot of these people are like connected in this like creative underworld of corporate, I was going to say corporate America, but like corporate society, I guess, the corporate world, the same way that, you know, Kanye kind of broke through the doors, and now you have Don C and Virgil and, you know, Aaron Preston, you know, like there's just like countless people that kind of, Jerry Lorenzo, like that just like follow once the door gets cracked open.
If you were a friend of Kanye, you are successful now.
Yeah. I mean, it seems that way, right?
Yeah, there's kind of a similar thing with some of the brands that started out of like Supreme. I think one of the early guys there started fucking awesome, and they're huge now.
Yeah.
Union.
So
fucking awesome. Yeah. Union. There's all of these people are very well connected, because I think to some extent they're like the hands-on in the cool shit that's happening, right? Like brands can't ever be involved on like a just neighborhood level of this is where the cool shit happens. And you can make cool shit happen in any neighborhood. But like if you can get a handful of people to make cool shit happen in a neighborhood, that's when the brands are like, oh shit, we got to pay attention. You know, like it's like Nike trying to move into New York and do all that stuff in the early days to get basketball, to make basketball a thing, street ball a thing for Nike shoes, right? They just knew that it was cool shit happening. They didn't know that they needed to actually make shoes for street ball.
I was going to ask, so what do you guys think? Speaking of triple collaborations and just kind of just, hey, is this out of touch, or is this something people want? But it goes back to Nike, Virgil's Off-White, but also Louis Vuitton. With that whole collaboration and setup coming down the road, again, we're seeing that triple collaboration, but is it something that's even, does it make sense? Like, I feel like some things just don't make sense, and I feel like that's one of them. But I want to see you guys' thoughts on that.
I forgot that the Louis Vuitton Air Force Ones are happening. I completely forgot. Louis Vuitton is such a special case because Louis Vuitton doesn't make things for a specific demographic. They make things, and people that like Louis Vuitton will just buy them no matter what. Yeah. It's because they just love Louis Vuitton and they like supporting them. They want to be invited to those super low-key events that they hold, or those Chase Black Card events that they give away special things at for rich people. So I think that's kind of where that Louis Vuitton Nike stuff is. It's not for the brand. It's not for anyone other than Louis Vuitton fans.
So I would take that in a different direction then, because I agree with Dalton. I think that the Louis Vuitton fan is going to buy the Louis Vuitton stuff no matter what, right? Yeah. That's why the Supreme stuff worked. Like the people that are buying that, it might be aspirational for kids lined up at Supreme, but like what kid lined up for Supreme has 10 grand in his pocket? You know, like not very many of them. And it's rare that people outside of the Louis Vuitton circle, right? Like if you're buying Louis Vuitton on a regular basis, you don't wait in line. You just tell your person that you want the stuff and you get the stuff. Like that's how like high-end luxury works. But I do think that it's interesting to see, you know, Louis Vuitton just bought out, you know, basically everything about Off-White with the exception of Virgil Abloh, right? So like they own a huge percentage of Off-White now. So, you know, the interesting thing about those relationships is that when they spin out of that situation, right? Like Kim Jones, you know, moving from Louis Vuitton to Dior, then doing a Dior Jordan 1, but then also doing a Kim Jones Air Max 95 is now that to me is a really like odd thing, right? Only because I never really think of him as doing his own things. I think of him as a brand person. Yeah. And then he does his own collaborations. Where like Virgil, he's so much like, you know, equal with the brand Off-White, right? Yeah, we know it's an Off-White Jordan 1, but we know that it's a Virgil Abloh Off-White Jordan 1. Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting way to kind of position. And I think, you know, Virgil and maybe even Kanye have been really successful at positioning themselves and their brands as equals. as opposed to, you know, someone who's just a name. And, you know, like that whole camp has really done well with it, right? Yeah. Fear of God and Jerry Lorenzo's up there too. But I think that it's, you know, I think that it's something that everyone would do, right? Like before we started recording, and I'll just toss it to you guys to kind of share, but like, you know, the thing about collaborations is, how do you possibly say no? As a fan of sneakers, as a fan of streetwear, as a fan of all these things, skate, basketball, baseball, cars, like if someone or some person or some brand that I admire or appreciate or respect says, hey, do you want to do some cool shit together? I say yes. And if you're in a position that your cool friends or your friend that's saying do cool shit, let's do some cool shit together is Louis Vuitton, fuck yeah, you're going to do a collaboration, right? Like Virgil's not going to say no, you know, like it just doesn't make any sense. But like, you know, could you guys ever say no to a collaboration if you had the opportunity? I mean, I think you have to get to a certain point of like failing at collaborations or just failing at working with a brand, you know, to Dalton's point about, you know, people leaving Nike to go to Adidas, right? Yeah. Once you've hit the ceiling of your creative freedom at a brand, that's when you say no. But until somebody says no to you about something that you have always thought about doing or wanted to do, you're going to say yes. I think 90% of people are going to say yes to collaborations. At least I would.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You have to.
Yeah, I would too. Just any of them, like Pony. I can't even remember like smaller brands, but yeah, totally.
I think at this point in time, like where I am, like in my quote unquote career, no, I couldn't turn it down. I think as I got further along and more successful, when I had the ability to say yes and no to things because I have laid the groundwork and like made a name for myself, then yes. So kind of double-edged sword, but in the beginning, like right now, no, I don't see why I would turn down a collaboration.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I just think it'd be impossible. And, you know, when you're like not at the top, maybe you're always hungrier, right? You know, looking up to the other people that have gotten to do these things and saying, how could I do my spin of that? You know, I think that's what kind of keeps people motivated too, right? You know, I think that's I wanted to circle back to just say like the beauty of like the collaborations that we're seeing right now. Yeah, it's a small group of people getting a lot of opportunities, but those people are really pushing each other, and we're seeing a lot of people get other opportunities outside of it, and we're seeing people try new things. So all in all, like as much as like I'm tired of seeing the this X that on every blog post on the sneaker blogs, it's still to me a good thing that we're seeing all these collaborations, you know. But
definitely. Always good to see new stuff. Yep. More new is better.
Agreed.
Even if it's on the same models we've seen 3 dozen times, it's something new.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up for this episode. I guess, guys, let them know how they can find you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MadWatcher789. You can find me here on Sneaker History, of course, and on YouTube at Mike Guillory. But Dalton, where can they find you, buddy?
My Instagram is sneaker_Saiyan, just like it is for Dragon Ball. That's about all. I'm not giving out my Twitter.
Yeah, you can find us all in the Sneaker History Discord. You can find me at Nick Engvall on all the platforms. But most importantly, follow at Sneaker History on all the platforms. And thanks for tuning in and supporting us. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.
See you.